Hello my friends, we are back with another follower requested review. This was sent to me by a follower of mine by the name of MP Hunt, and my goodness am I glad to have received it. I am absolutely buzzing about this collection. Before I get into the video, I have a huge request to make of you all. I know I've asked a lot of you all already this year, but we are so close to being monetized on YouTube. Which means this shabby poet can start paying bills from the YouTube videos that he makes. 2 weeks ago I secretly made the goal of being monetized by the end of the year, and we need just 700 hours of watch time. Now, honestly speaking, I think it might be too big of a task to achieve. 700 hours in just 7 days, that's 100 hours a day. But I figured when we was hunting down 1,000 subs, I asked if we could do it by the end of the month, and we did it by the end of the week. So who knows, maybe you lovely lot might be able to pull this off. So please do watch this video until the very end, and feel free to go back and watch over some of my older content to refresh those poetry minds of yours, and share with friends and family if you feel it's appropriate. Thank you so much for your time, and let's jump into the video. So as always, let's start with the formatting. I received this about a month ago actually. It's been sitting on my desk for a while, and as soon as I opened it up, oh man was I excited. Check out this cover. This cover is right up my street. Black cover with a white title. Immortalised in ink is the title of the collection, by the way. I think I forgot to say that. And it looks a lot like my tattoo actually. That's an awkward angle, but it looks a lot like my tattoo. It's it's an ink pot and quill with what one assumes to be blood splatters, which is again a lot like my tattoo, which says writing is easy, all you do is sit at a typewriter and bleed, which is a quote. And it's a quill and ink pot with some maybe ink, maybe blood splatters. So anyway, I'm all over this cover. It's got a nice texture to it, matte texture, and the blurb reads this: raising awareness of the often undiscussed impact of debilitating mental health issues, particularly surrounding young men, Immortalised in Ink is an intimate and brutally honest account of coming of age in Manchester, in the north of England. Its contents: undressed depression, darkness of the soul, love, marriage, grief and hope. It gives a magpie's salute to some of the most inspirational writing figures ever bestowed upon us, with homages to outstanding classic literature, battling creativity, numbing darkness, to emerge with a gritty, intriguing collection of poems of survival. Finally, publishing 20 years of highs and lows with a middle finger up to the struggles, ghosts of the past and failures that shape our successes, British dark poet MP Hunt has collected and released his life's work in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. That's a great blurb. I actually didn't read that before reading the collection and writing my script, so I wish I had, because I'm going to sort of repeat that in essence. So yeah, cover absolutely amazing, right up my street, great blurb, describes the content of the poetry perfectly and also sells it well without overdoing it. A lot of books now really oversell. I'm looking at Gabby Hanna's, but that's probably for a reason that they had to do that. So let's jump into the book itself. It's got a very nice handwritten note to me from MP Hunt, which I didn't notice until I was halfway through the collection. To Adam, thank you for taking the time to read my work, and thank you for all the work you do to help and encourage poets and poetry lovers. Keep up the great work, and I really hope you enjoy this book. All the best. Oh yes, I enjoyed this book. I thought that was a really nice touch. That's the first time someone's actually wrote a note to me within the book. So let's open up the book and take a look. It's got a very nice contents section. I really appreciate contents section with page numbers, goes a long way. In terms of the font, it is a typical sort of neat Times New Roman or Garamond font, which I think is the way to go. I tried to experiment with fonts in my collections, and I look back now and I don't think they work. I think this is industry standard for a reason. So I'm really impressed. And it's all just very neat and professional, and I think it's probably the most professional self-published collection I've ever read. I'm so impressed by this. Another amazing part of this collection are the illustrations. Now, I've discussed before in previous review videos how illustrations seem to be an industry standard for modern collection these days, and how they're all the same sort of stringy illustrations. MP Hunt has taken that and changed the type of illustration to suit his book. And this is the exact style of illustration I had in mind for my next collection, so he beat me to it, so well done, bravo. But just take a look at how amazing these illustrations are. There's another one on the opening poem. I just think they're lovely, and they're actually a work of art. No, that's unfair to say to the other illustrations, but this is more my style. This is what I would want in an illustration rather than swirly illustrations. There's not really much else to say on formatting. I think the formatting is almost perfect. The one small tiny critique I would have with the formatting is just that I would kind of probably add another space between the title and the poem. Sometimes it stands out, sometimes it doesn't, and that's such a minuscule thing, but normally when I do these reviews I look for something positive to say. I had to actively look for some constructive criticism, otherwise the poet might get a massive ego. But hey, he deserves a massive ego after this collection. But that's just the one thing I would say. Maybe the poem's a bit too close to the title, but that's not really a critique at all. That's just me trying to find something. So let's take a look at the poetry. I'm going to sum up the poetry now before going into more depth about it. The poetry in this collection is absolutely masterful, and I hold it up with the greats. Rhyme schemes, enjambment, cryptic, thought-provoking, formed and utterly crafted. Really, really great stuff. So let me talk about the opening poem. I'm going to read the opening poem as I always do. So let me start that now. In infinitum obscura. Little black book full of questions, what's your story? Keep secrets for the one who loved you once upon a time. Take time out to share with us your wisdom, little lost book, so mistakes are not repeated and we rectify forgotten crime. Cramped scribbles and prose tells a story of a wise man, but where was his mind when he left you here for us to find? Are we all prone to wisdom, or was he special, little torn book? Do you even have the answers, or were they also left behind? Did he love or tolerate you? A blessing, curse, or gift bestowed? Answers kept selfishly in secret, without disclosing hints or clues, filled with enigmas between your covers and spillages of thought. I create new endings for his stories, and yet they still remain as true. Observations, fabrications, and sets of rules to follow to nowhere. Reveal the answers that I seek, or I'll liberate your truths in fire. Deceptions of imagination or flights of innocent pretense. Are these ramblings eternal truths, or the golden spinnings of a liar? Wise men without faces write unashamed and unchallenged. I may be crazy or pretending with this book I've never owned. Marked in infinitum obscura, in sunken letters on your skin, found by chance when wandering, my destination still unknown. With truths and lies I add my own tales, building mountains out of dirt. Blank spaces closing inwards now in swirls of honest ink and flora. I remove my face to fit alongside, though exposed, ashamed and alert. A fool masquerading as a wise man seeks to stay in infinitum obscura. Meaning less of masks than rejecting ideas of the beyond now and forever, it would indeed be infinitely dark had the title been Ad Infinitum Obscura. Yet still in title and in deed, through the passing of what time has severed, I'm left unsettled in knowledge that my best editions are all much poorer. Heads buried in sands of home comforts and hoping to fade away, disappearing over horizons without the integrity or aim of an explorer. Hearing echoes of folk tales on breezes as the elders gather and say, you are doomed to your fate if you are tempted to stay in infinitum obscura. Even this creative license, which I entrusted to myself alone, fell short of mythos deemed worthy of my palette of privileged tastes, so I welcome the blindfold to block the progress of time's own, while I add scribbles to a masterpiece to save fortune from waste. Now, when I first read this, I hadn't cottoned on that the first section is about historical figures, and don't forget I didn't read the blurb at the back before reading. So what I really liked about this poem before I knew who it was about was how ambiguous it was and how many questions it got you asking yourself. You don't quite know what it's about until you know what it's about. And that is the sign of a perfect poem, is when the reader doesn't quite know what it's about and it could have multiple meanings. And as I say, that was until I kind of read the rest of that section and then looked back at the section titles and realised that actually it's about Edgar Allan Poe. I think it's about Edgar Allan Poe with the Black Book, and the illustration comes with a raven. I don't know too much about Edgar Allan Poe personally, just my, the basic knowledge, so I'm assuming that's right. Let me know if I'm right or if I'm wrong. Clearly Nathan has a love for the classics. Again, I didn't read the blurb until doing this video, so I didn't realise that had been expressed. But he talks a lot about history, and he mentions Faustus and Dorian Gray in the poem The Instinct Defence on page 30. And he even uses some archaic language, especially on page 28 in The Ballad of Mark Antony. And speaking of archaic language, MP Hunt has a very distinct voice in this, and I love it. He sort of throws it back to traditional poetry as well as staying modern and contemporary. There's a fine line between the language that he uses, and I think he mixes it up absolutely perfectly. My favourite poem in this collection comes in the second section called Songs of Rebellion. I'm not really supposed to say the word that I'm about to say because of YouTube's strange algorithm, so please, if you haven't already, hit like on the video so we can fight the strange algorithm that will diminish the reach of this video just for saying what I'm about to say. But my favourite poem in this collection is called COVID-19, in brackets, the first days. New threat from nature, death comes unseen. Fear found a new name in COVID-19. Cruel hands are creeping, the panic obscene, selfishly hoarding before quarantine. Take natural steps, such as keeping hands clean, keeping our distance, yet the selfish convene. Beginnings of a lockdown, the ignorant seen, flaunting cruel disregard for those without means. The weak are dispensable, or so it would seem. Pray you're not vulnerable with nowhere to lean. Still learning to fight without hope for vaccine, as the fear still grows stronger of COVID-19. The lowliest workers all have to stick to routine, denied the same protections as their management teams. Minimum wage lab rats to act as a screen, keeping up the illusion that the world lost no steam. No cure and no care, no help intervenes, not yet understood this vicious COVID-19. And this danger comes soon for you and for me. Fear knows no riches, measured only in screams. And it comes for us all, whether mild or extreme, the whole world will bear scars from cruel COVID-19. But we find good in humans, which we all rarely see. Beginning on balconies, the trapped set themselves free. To entertain and to share without any scheme, building bridges to people while keeping space in between. Then there are the heroes for the health war machine, battling in scrubs to keep us swimming upstream, risking their lives where most wouldn't dream, keeping the world turning despite COVID-19. No thanks for the many, but that was foreseen. Not done for the credit, just in hope for reprieve. We shall fight on in defiance, our hope evergreen, for the world shall not crumble under COVID-19. I said COVID-19 so many times in this video. This is definitely not going to get recommended to people. Also, I didn't pick up on the first read when reading this, the brilliant use of enjambment in the line here, building bridges to people, enjambment, while keeping space in between. That's very clever. Having read that, this is probably a good point to talk to you about rhyme. And I'll make this statement brief and to the point. For those of you who live by the notion that poetry doesn't have to rhyme, which is true, this collection just goes to show how much a rhyme scheme can really elevate your work. That's just my very strong opinion. Goodbye tears. Total strangers meet one day, and both are far from home. Love at first sight it may not be, but young hearts tend to roam. A kiss between them quickly shared, but nothing more can happen here. They live so far apart that they must kiss through goodbye tears. Young love is sweet and underrated, intense and strong and fast, but unfortunately, like all good things, this love was never meant to last. So, my final thoughts. Every aspect of this book is to be considered by the reader, and by that I mean you have to slow down and really digest and analyse and consider every aspect of what this poetry collection brings. The formatting, the poetry, the illustrations, the poet himself, and that's because this whole collection has been thoroughly thought over and organised. At first glance, the index doesn't wholly make sense. Immortalised in ink as a section title could mean anything. Obviously, keep in mind that I hadn't read the blurb before this video, otherwise it probably would have made sense straight away. But even without reading the blurb, once you've finished reading the whole section, you quickly realise it's about people that have been immortalised in history. The other sections follow on very nicely in a very considered order, and the poems within that section correlate perfectly. And I speak about that because it's nice to have that. You'll be surprised how many times I've read through modern collections where sections are segregated by a blank page, and I just sit there and spend about 5 minutes wondering, what does this mean? Until I end up just leaving it and not really considering, which is a shame. I personally find it a nuisance when I'm reading a modern collection and sections aren't titled at all, or they're titled in a very obscure way. That doesn't really make sense and leaves the reader confused at where they are in the journey of this collection. Throughout this collection, not just the section titles, but in every way, it sparks the perfect balance between showing and telling. This collection is an absolute piece of mastery in general, but especially in the self-published world, and everything I'm striving towards in the future, so I'm very grateful to have received this. I've become a huge fan of MP Hunt now, and I'm sure I'll be picking his brains for my future collections. Everything about this collection is right up my street, and I'm absolutely buzzing about it. I really hope that MP Hunt feels comfortable enough and eventually releases some videos of him reading his poems, because I think that would be amazing, especially if they're done in a cool gothic style. 100% everyone watching this video has to go out and buy this collection. Even if your style is modernistic, sort of free verse poetry, there's so much to be learned from this, and I'm going to be keeping it next to my collection, Violet Bent Over Backwards, easily the top two collections I've read in the year, and I will be referring to them when it comes to doing my own work. And so, before I go, I leave you with one more poem. But before I do, if you enjoyed this video, why not show the channel your support and the poet MP Hunt your support by liking the video, and if you want more content like this, just hit subscribe. Let me know your thoughts about this collection and the readings and the poems by leaving a comment in the comment section down below. I do everything I can to reply to every comment within the first 24 hours of uploading. See you next week, friends. Hello, Mr. Magpie. Hello, Mr. Magpie, and how are you today? I say to them in tribute in a funny kind of way. In those times of language, laughter and smoke, I told you my feelings in the guise of a joke. 6 weeks till September, not one day spared from thoughts of you. But you're far too good for me, and I don't want to look a fool. This short story had its tragic ending last year, when all became clear on my first time to hear about the only one who stole my breath when first seen, and how the idealized love was returned upon me. Autumn turns to ashes, and then I see what you mean. All the other things made sense but were failed to be seen. So now I walk around lampposts to avoid losing friends. Mimic your superstitions so it's like you're around me again. I love your love of poetry, of partying, dreams and play. I listened to that song you showed me on repeat for days. I wish that I'd been braver and tried for what was right, but all that time convinced myself that I'm not worth the fight. I'd like a few new memories, the ones missed fill me with shame. First legal drink on me to make you remember may have been inane. It may have been futile, but everyone I meet soon knows your name. I know I'm 2 years too late, but I still think and feel the same. I swore in ignorance and stubbornness that it was better not to tell, but there's nothing left to lose now, so now I think I might as well.